Long ago in a distant land, demons roamed the earth and unleashed unspeakable evil. On the brink of extinction, humans prayed to their gods, calling for someone to save them. Emerging from these desperate pleas, battle deities known as the Idaten rose to oppose them. Possessing unnatural strength and endurance, the Idaten managed to defeat the demons. Then 4 elder gods decided to sacrifice themselves to form a seal, locking the monsters away. One young god, Rin, was left behind at the time to protect the seal and look after any new gods that might be born. Thus, an era of unprecedented peace was finally ushered in. 800 years later, we see 2 lovebirds walking arm in arm when the wind blows by them. It's Rin racing Hayato, her new pupil, as they train. We can see Rin is far faster, so the frustrated student calls his lowly master an old hag, which she is. Yup, you heard that right, this is a classic. She looks 13, but she's 100 years old situation, and her elderly temper sure shows. After that beating, Hayato climbed his way up a mountain to see his master, who wasn't impressed since it took our boy 9 hours to lap the earth. Naturally, he responds by insulting her and calling her a senile old bitch for forgetting she beat him earlier. After beating the living crap out of him for a second time, Rin explains they are training to be stronger and ready whenever a new threat appears, recalling the events 800 years ago when they first were summoned. However, Hayato doesn't seem to be bothered by such thoughts, as it's been so long since they saw a demon. Therefore, the main man calls it a day and leaves after hitting his training quota to have some fun, while Rin lays at the seal and contemplates the state of peace they've been living. Sitting alone reading, Easley gets interrupted by Hayato. Both greet each other, and Easley remarks how Hayato became faster, but the latter doesn't care as he aims to be his master, unlike Easley, who stopped training and would rather consume books and chase other earthly subjects. Easley, with his unlimited lifespan, can learn much more than humans do, and makes the point that since they are in a peaceful era, having a smart rather than strong Idaten wouldn't harm. Done catching up, the 2 race to see their 3rd Idaten friend, Paula. Standing in an open field interacting with birds, one can see Paula is a sweetheart, and such a big heart needs a big pair to protect it. Degeneracy on the side, Paula has the power to converse with animals, it seems. As the birds told her, there are a bunch of humans gathering by the glaciers up north. Easley concludes they are military from the Zobel Empire. Zobel is a weaponized industrial country, so the place is plagued with heavily contaminated air and water. Intrigued, the trio decided to run 400 kilometers to check what the Empire was cooking. 20 minutes later, they arrive at the scene and see soldiers surrounding the place. The boys send Paula to jump around to fish any sussy business. A professor talks with the general, telling him they are 98% ready. Bless the camera angle, it shows Paula looking up only to be shocked when seeing a massive monster engulfed in ice. The professor explains that's one of the demons who left a blazing trail of carnage 800 years ago. He continues to name the beast Yudo-kun, the demon beast. A bottom feeder as far as demons go, but more than a match for any human military. Meanwhile, the boys were still listening to the convo and then received a photo from Paula's end to see what they were dealing with. Although Hayato is not worried, since it seems this big fella isn't much of a match to them. And in the worst case scenario, Rin can defeat it pretty easily. Easley is worried about how this so-called Dr. Obami knows about a demon from 800 years ago, and the existence of gods, as humans from that time must have been long gone. At that moment, the big fella escapes his icy cold prison to be greeted by a very happy old geezer and a worried general. The old-timer ensures the demon won't do shit to harm them, as is pretty docile generally speaking. However, he goes on a burst of rage when a god is spotted, and as you remember, sweet Paula is still behind enemy lines and the big demon spots her. After dodging the first hit, the demon sucks water from the lake via his tail and shoots it. The general freaks out and orders his men to open fire at the demon, much to the doctor's dismay, as the demon might target them, which he does. Soon after, Obami spots the young gods swoop in to help their friend. The doctor smirks, as this is the perfect opportunity to see what centuries of peace did to these new gods. From an interaction with the general, we see that bullets don't affect Idaten. But then the demon hits Hayato with a heavy blow that is capable of taking an adult male head off and sending the main man flying, as if he had a talking cat Pokemon for a sidekick. Seeing this, Easley tries to dropkick the demon, but the big fella stands there unfazed. To put it in perspective, Easley's hit was strong enough to destroy a tank, yet not these demonic abs of steel. Consequently, failing such an attack at close range means getting penetrated, and not in a good way. Paula tries to help but gets her tatas slapped unconscious. When the bastard goes to finish the job, he is surprised his palm finds no one. Turns out the nail to the heart wasn't enough to kill Easley, but they can feel pain to some extent from what he told Paula. You see, from his training with Rin, Easley learned they can withstand damage like getting heart-plugged, neck-breaking, and other fatal hits. Therefore, Hayato, who still hasn't shown up yet, is still alive and back with a grudge on his shoulder. The big one that he throws at the demon to make an opening to get to his stomach and kick the shit out of it, before going ape mode on that demon ass and then send it flying. With enough distance in between them, Hayato launched for the big bad like a flying missile to make his chest match his boy's, but unlike him, the demon couldn't withstand it and died. Happy from the data he acquired, Dr. Obami makes his exit known. However, Hayato, being able to overtake a fighter jet flying at max 2 speed, catches up in an instant and chills on the wing of the jet before tearing it apart. Back with the beauty and the smart ass, Eastly made a phone call for a group to come and get the demon corpse before the Zobel Empire does. On the other end, we find out that Obami is a robot, which makes Hayato glee as he has a new toy to give to his boy. Sadly, the present decides to self-destruct. Elsewhere, a nun prays in a church as her town burns. A group of soldiers enter the church, and we all know what happens next. Let's just say, God was not available during that sad moment. In light of recent events, Paula and Eastly talk about getting back to training with Rin. Paula never met her before, so Eastly tries to give her an honest outlook on their master. Starting with that, she was the one who drew Hayato and Pront, aka the person who drew Paula out. Eastly explains Idaten are naturally occurring entities. If left alone, they will still manifest within a few centuries. But with the intervention of another Idaten, they can be pulled out in an instant. Furthermore, adding that those pulled out often take on the Idaten responsible as their master. With her being the only survived from the old times, Rin is the strongest god in current existence. Also, supposing the Zobel Empire has stronger minions than the big fella they fought, then sticking with our boy and the old hag under the premise of training is probably their best chance of survival, and we say probably since there is a chance they might die in training. Eastly used to train alongside Hayato. When he found the training to be harsh, he quit after a couple of months, unlike the main man who stuck around for 80 years getting the Loki treatment. Seeing this, Paula doesn't skip a beat to call it a beating, not training, but according to Eastly, it's the proper way to train an Idaten. That said, Rin doesn't understand the theory, and she's doing what she wants, which scares him. At that moment, Rin vanishes and appears behind the duo with her menacing aura. Immediately, the lowly god calls him out on his quitter behavior 50 years ago. Assessing the situation, Eastly concludes the only way out of this situation is to be direct and truthful. So he turns around and gets on all fours to apologize as well as ask her to teach him how to fight again. This direct approach effectively masked his true intention of being with her just to stay safe, and Rin fell for it. From her perspective, an Idaten who shirked his training to learn in the human world was essentially the same as a shut and who did nothing but play erotic games all day. Thus, when Eastly spoke, it was as if this failure of a son put on a business suit and promised to get back to work and be a good member of society. Seeing this, Rin cried tears of joy and embraced her former student. Also, she welcomed her new student Paula, who as stated before was drawn by Rin's first student Pront. Rin is bragging about how it took her 200 years to train Pront into shape, and now his disciple Paula is gonna walk in his footsteps, or rather gonna break ribs in the same place her master did. Turns out, Pront didn't teach Sweetheart anything in terms of combat, leaving Eastly to be the next victim. After being flung away, he made sure that Paula was still alive, but the latter couldn't talk as Rin punched a lung. At the moment, Hayato recovers and gets back ready for round 2. He explains over Paula's lifeless body that he got his organs mashed up enough time he stopped worrying about it, so that Paula, who will need 3 days to recover, can lay there with an easy mind, although her facial expressions tell another story. Eastly then narrates the reasons why he stopped training with her, not for the sole reason it was harsh, but also because he couldn't accept that this daily routine would amount to any real growth, and the fact his master is a complete airhead who doesn't know anything about their nature or have any constructive idea pushed him to leave. Elsewhere, a general named Pisella was ordering her men to storm his city, destroy it, kill the men, kidnap the children, and take their women. From the looks of it, they entered the army just for that reason. Soon after they march on the city, a soldier arrives to inform the general they are calling for a meeting in the capital. A rocket at that moment flies her way, but she stands there confident. Pisella blocked it with a tank under her feet and then threw it at the enemies before leaving. Back with the home team, the weaklings are still on the ground while Hayato talks about how this hellish training makes them stronger, a simplistic look that Eastly further explains. Idaten are different on a cellular level from other organisms, hence they require a unique way of training. After all, they can survive getting their heart plugged out and don't need nutrition nor oxygen to breathe. Yet they do act out of breath when tired out of habit, as their genesis lies in the thought of living creatures who also dictate their creation. The reason they are in human form is because humans have more thought than other creatures. Further explaining that the reason Paula can speak with birds is because she is partly composed of birds' thoughts. Easily tied all that information with, Hayato was right, getting your body destroyed over and over makes them distinctly inhuman, gaining a metamorphosis that makes him more effective in combat. With the explanation over, we moved back to the two airheads who were chilling on top of the big rock, until Hayato noticed a small device stuck on the granny's pants. Not knowing what that little thing was, she destroyed it to dust. Elsewhere, we see the city where the soldiers storming now on their knees and praying for higher-powered help. Eastley sees the news and adds to his explanation that the major force driving their creation is the desire for salvation. Paula asks, if that's the case, then why we don't help humans at all? To which the know-it-all god replies, it's other humans who make humans suffer in war, so what sense would it make to fight humans to save humans? And since the victorious nation would take the other's place and prosper, it wouldn't be a problem for them. In the grand scheme of things, Edaten aren't so different from humans when it comes to the brains section. Just like how humans see fish as a source to exist, regardless of the ecosystem, gods see humans as a source of existence. As long as a couple of thousand stay alive, they are Gucci. Gods interfere to help humans only when demons attack, since if they do nothing, humans will go extinct. Speaking about monsters, General Pisella arrives at the headquarters and gets greeted by a fellow High Commander lowly named Nickel. The two, among all other high-ranking officials, head to the meeting, all except the Prime Minister, who is denied entry, so he sends a ninja to spy on them. With all members assembled, the star of the show entered in his new tin body. Before they get into business, Nickel interrupts to solve one teeny-tiny problem, the ninja. Nickel mutates her hand, grabs him from behind the wall, and kills him on the spot. Then the Empress asks Dr. Obami, the demon lord, to continue with the meeting. 800 years ago, we witnessed a weak crybaby version of Rin, one that calls for her dear grandfather to save her. Being weak frustrated her a lot, but her kind old man always comforted her and protected her as she gained experience as well as some confidence. Back to Dr. Obami and the others from the Zobel Empire, they analyzing the data they got on the young Edaten to assess their weakness and whether they can them head-on in a fight. Although most if not all demons think they can beat Paula and Eastley, fewer think they can beat Hayato, and even fewer, in fact only 2 members, think they can beat their master, who hasn't shown yet. Then the demon lord asks about their army numbers, which consist of 364 demons and 80 million humans, while the general population stands at 220 million. Considering the Edaten sense something fishy might be happening in the kingdom, the demons can't stay in the shadows waiting to raise their numbers, they have to strike, and thanks to the tracking device Obama put on Hayato before he self-destructed, they know where they are at. That said, Eastley also saw the transmitter on Haya's back after his boy came back from the chase, so he removed the audio hardware and put it on Rin's son. This explains why it was on her earlier and why the demons thought the audio stopped working due to some impact. With all the info Dr. Obami has gathered, he decides to make his next move carefully, i.e. send their strongest fighter, Nickel. Eastley deduces that the fighter will be strong enough to take down Hayato, but Rin is another story. She can single-handedly defeat it. Paula, though, is worried about leaving Rin's son to fight on her own, so Eastley assures her their master has no intention of going down. Besides, if their opponent is strong enough to beat her, then they have stood no chance from the start. Soon after that talk, the duo goes to join their master and Hayato. During training, they manage to land a hit on Rin for the first time in centuries by using some tricks, like the one Naruto used in his fight against Neji. But this is not that kind of show, so she beats Eastley too. Suddenly, a fighter jet appeared in the sky. Nickel jumped and landed in front of the group, and then she stood there, menacingly, which scared the crap out of Paula, who sensed a big scary demon residing inside that petite loli's body. However, Hayato, having trained and beaten up by a monster loli of his own countless times, doesn't care and confronts her. That said, she shows him who's daddy in these parts of the land and pulls his heart out. However, this time he stays on his feet, showing that just like Saiyans, taking damage just makes Aiden stronger, and so Hayato stood his ground and proceeded to rain down a barrage of punches, yet they weren't enough to seal the deal. Nickel then penetrated him with her parasite-like hand. Seeing this, Rin entered the chat and sent the little psycho flying away. What was funny though, despite what Rin just witnessed, she still called Nick a human, albeit a weird human. Rin proceeded to knock Hayato unconscious so he could take a good rest while she took care of business. Before taking his friends away, Eastley tells his master to be careful as she is not fighting a human. Nickel tries to get the jump on her, but Rin is too fast. The 800-year loli gets all close up and personal in Nick's face to ask her if she's really a demon, to then give her a little taste of what her students go through on a day-to-day basis. Midair, Nickel retracts her arms and makes a big fist that does nothing but disgust our girl out. While the rest of the cast flew away from the impact, Rin stood like an absolute unit and tanked it like it was nothing before giving her the Loki treatment. That said, Nickel is one of a hella crafty demon. She spun so fast that she was able to cut Rin's fingers, so the latter was like, okay, get kicked in the face instead. Also, to add insult to injury, when Nickel rose back up with a smirk on her face for cutting dem digits, Rin grew them back as if they were fast-growing plants. Meanwhile, the young ones are watching from afar. Paula mentions the possibility of them getting hit and should move further, but Easley disagrees as he predicts any further they wouldn't be safe, which was a good decision since there was a sniper lurking miles away waiting for a good shot. Back to the main event, Rin still questions if her opponent is a demon or not, surprising Nickel with how stupid she is. Nonetheless, the latter answers her dead ass and confirms she is a demon, adding that their demon lord Obami-sama was the one who helped her and others to get a human form. Hearing this, Rin was surprised since not only demons were stupid creatures that worked on insects back then, but also there was no such thing as a demon lord. Anyways, Rin quits playing games with the demon Loli and conjures his sword from thin air, and right before Nickel can act on her plan attacking from underground, Rin speaks and Nickel freezes. You see, over the years, Rin was finally able to cut someone's head without appearing she had moved. How many years we talking? Well, after her granddad and other old-timers fused with the seal, Rin cried for some time till she realized with the new boom of life, she now had to protect it if anything major threat happened. So for 800 years, she has undergone harsh training, from destroying her body and mastering the martial arts. Rin managed to free herself from any fear and has become the strongest living god. Also, after her first disciple Pront finished his training, she finally felt at ease. Just like the sniper who soon met his maker when Rin teleported to his location. Upon analyzing all the info, Easley deduces that the demons are using the Zobel Empire as a means to stay hidden. At that moment, Hayato stands back up all fired up, ready to train his heart out since if anyone can whoop his ass is his master. But she declines and snaps his neck so he can rest and get back to full. Using this distraction, Easley weasels his way to contact the scientists researching the big demon body and informs them that he has a new sample to deliver. Soon after, he calls his boy Pront to see his progress with magic learning. Witnessing their strongest fighter getting brutally destroyed, the demons naturally start contemplating whether they can win this whole thing or at least stay alive. The demon Lord Obami concludes they must deal with the three young Edaten as leaving them to become monsters, just like their master would be too risky. So he asks Pisala and two other officers to take care of them using human intelligence and army, since the gods won't harm the humans they are protecting, right? Question mark. Wrong, Rin doesn't care for humans. In fact, she was all fired up and ready to erase the Zobel Empire and everyone in it regardless of nature. However, Easley doesn't tell her where the Empire resides on the map and manages to calm her down by mentioning that Pront's son would be a great asset to have during the invasion. Hence, Rin agreed to wait for a week till they regroup. Suddenly, a flying Hayato comes crashing down ready to continue the practice with his master, who shoots him away as if she was CR7. Seeing this, Easley was amazed that his boy managed to land a hit alone, and a strong one at that, capable of moving the powerhouse known as Rin. Easley further notices how Hayato is recovering faster than before. He deduces that his loss against the demon has made him want to get stronger even more, which in turn makes his strength rise a little bit, but not enough to remain one piece when Rin fights him. After demolishing her student, Rin goes to check a couple of Navy ships heading her way to see if there are any demons on board. Meanwhile, the boys are having a peaceful walk underwater. Paula asks why he didn't just call Prontea to them. Easley notes that they need to check with him first and see how the research is going. Also, if they went ahead and destroyed the Empire, the other two superpower nations might get too frisky, so they need to make certain moves to prevent another war that the demons might benefit from. Speaking about the demons, Pisala makes a call to the doctor to tell him that they found the sniper's body, but not Nickel's. Speculating the Edaten have already collected Guido and the Loli to do some research on them, the demons' next destination is clear: Hotina, the capital of science. There we meet with Pront's son, who seems to have some earthly interests just like Easley, who he lit on fire to show him his progress with magic. Soon after Hayato wakes up in this new place, we see the demons arrive in the country searching for them. Now in his room of cams, Prontia explains that all these cams are linked to his mind and that's how he keeps an eye on the world. That said, Hayato is not impressed whatsoever. He just wants to get back with the old hag and continue his work. Intrigued, the tall blondie asks who this old hag he speaks of, to which Easley answers after he asks him to stay calm. Turns out Prontad, the student Rin always talked confidently about him, is scared shitless of her, the same way I hear my father's footsteps whenever an ecchi scene starts playing. After the big boy freaks out and finishes apologizing for existing, Easley tells him she is not mad and calms him down. He then tells him they have a week to regroup with her, enough time to hack into the Zobel Empire network and to train Hayato even more, this time under Pronta. With the roles being sorted out for everyone, Eastleigh leaves the group to deliver Nickel's head to the scientists. While he jumps his way through building rooftops, the demons catch a glimpse of him, which is enough to make them know where he is headed and to sign Priscilla to take care of him. Meanwhile, Pront is taking care of Hayato's training, and just like his master, this lad doesn't hold back. Pront's attacks come in the magical form though, which doesn't impress Hayato, who has grown accustomed to the physical brutality of Rin. Realizing Hayato is one tough cookie to crack, Pront decides to continue and up the power of his attacks a little bit. Fed up, Hayato lunges at top speed, but his heavy attack lands lightly on Pront's head, so he decides to rain down multiple ones, which also doesn't seem to have any effect on his new teacher before the latter puts him down with a magical punch. On Eastleigh's end, he learns that an easy way to kill a big boy like Gyudo would be poison, lots of it. Eastleigh then asks if the professor knows Dr. Obami, which the latter confirms and adds that the Empire doesn't care about any research unless the doctor was running it or approved it. His work was mainly about cloning and other similar subjects. Eastleigh concludes that the demons are trying to find a way to propagate, i.e., multiple. A scientist interrupted his thoughts, asking for him to come and check something, and that something was a trap by Priscilla. Eastleigh was fast to think of his feet and destroyed the lights, leaving the hot war criminal no other option but to open the door. Back with the lads, they get jumped by two other demons carrying a boulder, thinking it would be enough to crack Pront's rock-solid head. Prontia engages the two in aerial combat to assess their power and decide which one would be a great match for Hayato. The little demon Shoto wastes no time and shows his true face to then eat both Hayato and Paula. Thankfully, Hayato pushes the hottie out last second, and from the outside, she goes on the offense trying to get her friend out of the beast's jaws. When everything fails, Paula goes back to the good old kick him in the nuts technique, which to Paula's surprise works pretty well. While Pronte looks at his students' performances, Neput Sucker punches him with all of his might, but it does nothing to Pronta, who answers the big lug by a flashing light. Likewise, Eastleigh used a flash bomb to make an opening for himself and then informed the demon that he already figured out their plans to eliminate the young gods while they are still weak. Eastleigh assured her that it wouldn't happen as the boys were with Pronte's son. Speaking about the G, he is still facing Neput, with the latter going demon berserk mode on him, yet it's still not enough to wipe the smile off Pronte's face. Eastleigh gives Priscilla a history lesson about demons and gods. Meanwhile, Priscilla plans to kill him the same way Nickel wanted to kill Rin, with an attack from underground. However, Eastleigh, already having seen this move, throws a flash bomb. Priscilla closes her eyes, thinking it's just another desperate attempt to escape, not realizing he did it to take a good look at her booba. Now, don't get me wrong, the four eyes do give a degenerate vibe, but he did that to see the range of emotions of these new demons and confirm that they are working on making little demon babies. Feeling all flustered, Priscilla attacks but Eastleigh dodges, and the main man pulls another flash bomb from God knows where. When Priscilla opens her eyes, she sees Eastleigh standing there, mincingly. The madman used the opening she created with her hair to insert some narcotic and aphrodisiac cocktail that makes the brain paralyzed with pleasure, and since the demons have human brains despite their supernatural bodies, the aphrodisiac works like a charm. Eastleigh gets this villainous look on his face and does the thing with the glass, the move every character with glasses do whenever they figure out they are about to do some heinous shit that Jesus Christ doesn't approve of. In this case, it was brainwashing via surgery. Eastleigh learned such skill from dissecting an innumerable number of humans to understand what he was. Back in the Zobel Empire, the staff calls for Miku, who let's just say is playing with a nun. Miku has a special power to see the outcomes of different possibilities and determine what will happen. Miku orders the ships to move a certain, which makes Rin adjust her stand. This tells them that Rin doesn't care about humans and is ready to kill everyone on sight. Further analyzing that Rin must be protecting something important on that island, which the demon lord confirms to be the seal keeping the demons locked away. However, breaking the seal is way too tricky, and they can't guarantee that the locked demons can differentiate between a foe and a friend. All this info makes Miku suspicious of how their demon lord knows this and how he knows the name of the person protecting the seal. After 6 hours, Hayato defeats Cory the demon and the kid, and with both demons defeated, the lads take them to see Eastleigh in the surgery room. And just like that, the demon trio is now working for the god team. Priscilla gives a brief about the demons working within the Empire, what they do, their power standings, and how they produce a demon-human hybrid. During that meeting, the lads ask about the demon lord, but the demons don't know who he is or who he was. Paula suggests that he's an Edaten, but everyone throws it under the rug with no proof for it. That said, Eastleigh talks with Priscilla and heads out with Pronte, hinting that he figured out who the demon lord is. While they discuss the nature of the demon seal and continue their talk about Dr. Obami, Eastleigh confirms that he's an Edaten, and not just any Edaten, but one based on the thoughts of demons. As mentioned before, there are 3 necessary things for an Idaten to manifest: the thoughts of many creatures, their desire for salvation, and a period of time numbering in the centuries. Thus, if you take the Idaten, who sacrifice themselves, as well as the thought of the slowly painfully dying demons, add 800 years to the mix, and you've got the perfect storm to create Obami, the combination of the demon's desire and the knowledge of the Idaten, who were locked in the seal. However, Obami himself doesn't know that, as his memories are still hazy, and his physical body is locked behind the seal, he exists in this realm by projecting his thoughts into machines. Meanwhile, Hayato is back on the grind with the help of the demons. This time he tries to get strong, yet as Piscilla notes, his punches feel light. While laying down on the ground, Pront appears to him. After freaking out, the big man tells him the reason his attacks feel so lackluster is because he can't control his weight properly, just like how Paula demonstrates on the scale going up and down. With the explanation out of the way, Pront throws a giant rock on Hayato's shoulders, asking him to imagine it as lightweight, easy weight. Soon after, Easley arrives to check on his boy's progress, as they will be going to war soon. In the meantime, Easley doesn't want to bother with the Demon Lord, as he's not gaining any power behind this seal. Instead, Easley wants to come up with a perfect plan to deal with the demons and the outcome of the war on the human nations. All in all, Easley just wishes to end this dilemma as soon as possible, since he doesn't want to train, but get back to his books and research, like the nerd he is. That said, with a monster like Hayato on his side, Easley wouldn't need any training, as the lad has caught pretty quick on how to switch his body weight and showed it to Piscilla firsthand. Just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, Neput goes head-to-head with him in demon form, and Hayato absolutely destroys his ass. Turns out, Hayato never threw a punch at his natural body weight, which kind of freaked Pront out, as he realized all the damage he took from Hayato before was just him throwing punches at a few kilograms, or pounds if you are American. Anyways, seeing the overwhelming potential of Hayato, Pront goes next, and he gives his student a handicap. Pront will not be dodging any of Hayato's hits. Feeling belittled, Hayato leaps forward with speed and momentum, but isn't enough to phase Pront, who tanks it like a champ and then sends Hayato flying via a kick of his own. Meanwhile, in the Zobel Empire, Miku predicted that the demon trio was defeated and possibly got squeezed out of info, further showing how smart she is. Yet brains alone don't win wars, strength is also needed, and with the defeat of Nickel, Brandy is now the strongest demon on their side, but the chick doesn't seem so enthusiastic about it. Consequently, Big Mama calls for her children to meet them for the last time before she orders them to flee the country. Apparently, she gave birth to these 3 herself, not using the demon nanny that fuses demons with humans at birth. That said, the kids leave following their mom's orders, and everyone goes their own way, or rather after their desires and with their significant other. On the other side of the map, a priest is preaching to his followers about the Lord and how they are the holy soldiers chosen to conquer the other nations in his name, and that's when the young gods crash his party to introduce themselves. Funny enough, the priest resists to open his eyes to the light and accepts them young gods. Instead, he orders his men to open fire at Paula, who doesn't get affected, and then descends with a pair of wings that she manifested after Easley's demand to fool the humans into thinking they are their gods. Yet, with all the signs in front of him, the head priest still resists letting Paula in and even pulls some heat on her. After some more proving they are indeed gods, Paula learns that this country worships Pront as their god and savior after he fixed it and saved it from doom. The country was actually built by Rin's son, but she didn't bother to make it any decent, so he, Pront, went there, fixed it, and told the people to do whatever they pleased to modify the land. Thereafter, hundreds of years pass, and the nation grew strong enough to start conquering other lands, which Paula calls them out on it. That said, Easley tells the leaders that he and other gods, along with their savior Prontia, will destroy the Zobel Empire, leaving just this nation and another, so he prohibits them from going to war against each other and orders both to help Zobel to rebuild from the ground up. Naturally, some parasites protest, as they don't want to work with so-called heretics. Hence, Easley checks their hypocrite asses on the spot, mentioning how this country has been doing whatever it wanted in the name of God, and using that authority to get rich, which Easley doesn't seem to mind that much, since their greed did lead to the greater good of the people, from feeding the poor to empowering the weak and facing pandemics. Although people might consider them as scum for taking advantage of the situation later on, the gods don't care as long as a wide-scale war doesn't start and the environment stays intact. Meanwhile, at the Zobel Empire, we learn through Miku's research that anything related to Idaten, from the physical body to cloth and the weapons they manifest, are made from one source. In other words, they are a single unit, and if they get detached from the main body, the stuff will vanish over time. Back with the boys, Hayato is still practicing with the long-haired dude, and from the looks of it, Hayato has improved beyond expectations, for it shows when he managed to push back Pront, and it's all thanks to easily advising him to lower his weight while moving and then increase it before impact. Shortly after, the man of the hour arrives to inform his homies that the plan is now in motion, ending this stage of training with Pront and move Hayato to the next stage, live combat. But before that, all roads lead back to Rin-san, who after a long time meets her first student. The Zobel Empire watches in concern as the number of Edaten increases, and to make matters worse for the D team, Miku has abandoned ship, i.e., she fled with Umiyo, the nanny, to keep pumping demon kids and rebuild their race. That said, Miku did leave her demon lord a message telling him how royally screwed they are and that the invasion of the city is near. And sure enough, it was pretty near, as the gods arrived swiftly after her escape and started destroying all roads in and out of the city to trap them inside like mice. Thereafter, Rin entered and started destroying everything in sight with little to no regard for human life. Pisala uses this situation to broadcast a message to the civilians and order them to escape using the main highway that the gods left, a way for humans to leave and for Prontia to spot any high-priority target. Back with the two muscleheads, after Hayato leaves his master's side, Rin gets intersected by demons she killed before and they attack the confused god. Unbeknown to her, they are being controlled by Brandy from far away using her hair. Meanwhile, Hayato manages to find his way to a facility being protected by soldiers, so he forces his way in and finds out the nun and other ladies are being imprisoned there. Soon after he sets them free, the Emperor arrives at the scene telling the nun that this kid is a god, albeit not like the all-powerful god she worships. Speaking about being all-powerful, Hayato shows his godly power by ripping a pillar with his bare hands, yet the Emperor matched his coolness by stopping the attack with one finger. Kinda reminds me of Rayleigh when he stopped Marco attacking by coating his fingers with hockey. That said, this fight appears to be far more brutal than One Piece. I mean, the guy poked Hayato's eyes as it was another day on the office, and the little dude took it like a champ and opened them again after healing. Meanwhile, Rin-san was still fighting the dead demons, and although she figured out her opponents were dead, she still didn't figure out the real person controlling them, as in her mind this hobo demon rocking a wife beater was the one behind the threads. Thus, Rin attacks him head-on, but she falls for a trap. Then she tries again and gets her arm cut clean. Consequently, Brandy, who knew she was fighting a losing fight, starts to think she might have a chance considering how dumb Rin is. As she needs to do is set traps and lay back. Speaking about laying back, Pronte, who was out of action for a while, spots a demon wearing Miku's clothes, so he swoops in and takes her for questioning. On the side of his student, Hayato is having quite a rough time against the Emperor. The latter analyzes that if the fight goes on much longer, it will result in his defeat as Hayato regenerates way too fast. So the big boss decides to play it slow and let Hayato come at him. There is a joke in here, but I will refrain. Anyways, he uses the immature fighter Spee against him and impales him, much to the nun's horror. However, Hayato did it on purpose so he could get close enough and break the big bad arm. Sure, it cost him his small intestine. But at this point, who's counting how many organs he has destroyed? Likewise, his master has lost a couple of parts too, but she regrows them in figures. If she can't catch the person controlling the threads, she will just pull the threads and spin as fast as she can to get them to her, marking both Rin and her students as the victors over the husband and wife demons. Now, if we are being honest, seeing the nun trying to pull the demon emperor back to safety made me think, what a dumb this Missy is. But then again, during their interaction and flashback from the demon guy, one must think, those New Age demons might be redeemable as they do possess feelings. With such thoughts going through the nun's mind, she broke down and cried for a higher power to give her power so she could protect everyone. At that moment, the three conditions for an Edaten manifestation were met, and a rift appeared in front of Hayato from which he pulled Sister Gil, the new addition to the gods team. Soon after, a demon stabs our boy from behind. Afraid, Gil takes Hayato and flies away to regroup with the home team. Meanwhile, Rin was still with Brandy, questioning her about the whereabouts of the Demon Lord, not because he's a major threat, but because the way he names stuff reminds Rin of her grandfather who used to do the same. For example, Rin's grandfather would name a big demon that looks a certain way Gyudo-kun, which as Brandy recalls was the case with her Demon Lord Dr. Obami. Speak about the devil, the old-timer shows himself at the battlefield and starts talking casually with Rin as he has known her from long ago. He even mentions how her sword resembles the one her elder used and how she was a frail crybaby. Shocked, Rin asks who the old man is, to which he replies, "A good question. I have no clue myself." However, as time goes on, he keeps remembering more and more stuff about events 800 years ago. To add icing on the cake, Dr. Obami has the same habits and mannerisms her grandfather used to do. Seeing all this, Rin drops her sword and cries, calling for her grandfather. But at that moment, Brandy picks up Rin's sword and uses her power against her, which proves too strong for Bee to handle, blowing both Rin and her demon lord. That said, Rin survives and kills Brandy, yet Dr. Obeami blows into thin air, saddening Rin's son, who is now convinced that he is the incarnation of her beloved grandfather. The following days, Rin sat under her rock in silence, completely still, while her underlings wondered what had gotten her into this slump. Besides that, we learn after a week has passed, the word is spread that the destruction of the Empire happened due to a military coup d'etat, a revolution led by General Piscalat and Commander Neput. Consequently, the Empire now will rebuild itself from scratch under the guidance of the previous human Prime Minister. We further learn of the demons that managed to escape. Beamy's daughter went on a killing spree along with her demonic butler, unlike her big brother who went into hiding as soon as he escaped with little to no trace, showing that this one has an actual brain to use, just like Miku, who is now living in a net cafe, trying to fish out an unlucky bastard on the interweb and later meet up with the blonde prince. Furthermore, the event resulted in a mountain of paperwork that burned out Piscalat due to her monkey brain, unlike Isley, who is a god. Therefore, the lad gives her some time to rest. When she enters her room, we find out that the nun is staying with them, the human one, not the shiny godly one, who is now hanging with Paula, talking about how much she desires to get stronger and help others. It seems that Hayato's personality has influenced her to some extent. Back to action, we see Croft the butler is still with Reiki, not because he loves the stupid girl, but because of her ability to extend little threads and steal money, allowing him to coast freely as they run. Alas, his luxurious lifestyle caught up to him as Pront managed to track him at the hotel. Sensing his powerful murderous intent, the two immediately jumped into underground tunnels. Although the boys are fast AF, they could not catch the lovebirds due to the tunnels being built as a maze, but the butler boy doesn't know that, so he decides to do the do with Reiki just to calm his nerves and enjoy what he thought his last hour on Earth. Upstairs, Miku and the girls find a neat chick who has her own house and has enough finances for them to chill until they find a way to contact their comrades. Likewise, the demon prince has killed some humans and just waiting to come up with a way to contact the rest of the demons, and most importantly the demon lord, who by the way still exists in the realm but without a body. Thus, both groups now are waiting for the best time to contact him and find a new body for him. This leaves the third brother, who escaped with his girlfriend to a remote island where they put on Marvin Gaye and get it on, resulting in them having a demonic baby that lacks ways to communicate and attacks anything. As Piscalat explains, if a demon doesn't fuse with a human early on, it would become a giant creature with a rigidly defined form, whose body is made out of tentacles. Piscalat further explains that demonic humans have lots of eyes, but after fusing most of them grow inwards, so it is hard to confirm how many on average the number would be. Isley gets to see one up close and personal, too personal, as the middle-aged bald demon implied before he told them that one of the demon kids arrived at their doorsteps. It's the young demon prince and his girlfriend. They came seeking Piscalat's help to catch their kid and help them turn it into a human demon, but unbeknown to them, their ugly kid is way past that phase. However, the young mama's tears shall not be shed anymore as Corey comes from behind to release her from all her worries, and then the young prince follows her. In all honesty, from all the demons, those two were the least deserving to die from what's seen, at least since when they ran, they decided to go to a remote island and just chill away from all the killing and demon stuff. But as Isley sees it, such move was a bad move due to the lack of intel from the outside world. Meanwhile, Hayato is training with the gals and he is not pulling any punches, thus Corey-kun volunteers to train with him. Now you might be like, Hayato, forgotten who Corey is, so to remind you, he was the kid Hayato faced for 6 hours when Hayato was training with Pronta for the first time. With that out of the way, it was apparent this version of Corey, the cooler one with better drip, is far stronger than the old one, and his new transformation is much uglier. Turns out, when demons hit puberty, they gain a power-up for free. Isley watches on, confident in his boy's ability to overcome this new challenge. Isley hopes to train Hayato to the max to make him gain so much power that he can brute force his way out of any fights, since he, our main man, do be lacking in the brains section. Talking about brains, Miku is still chilling with the nurse farming new husbands at spawn before learning that demon babies are running amok, which is the opening they needed to contact the demon lord through a secret password Miku left to Obami within her note when she ran from the Empire. You see, Miku has planned it all, from her fleeing the battlefield, finding this place they are at, and getting free delivery of machinic toys that the demon lord will use as a medium. She has foreseen it all. However, once she talks with his lordship and learns how many demons are left and who, she becomes pessimistic. That said, the hostess with the mostess still schemes and plans. She asks Obami to pass the blonde prince a password that only Miku's sister would know from their childhood. Naturally, Easley, who was listening to their call, gets frustrated as he cannot figure the Miku's next move. However, unbeknown to Easley, Miku is not planning to do anything but wait and enjoy the show from the sidelines as Reiki and Croft keep pumping demon babies. Yes, the toxic couple has survived and is doing better than ever in the wild. We see days, weeks, and even years go by as Rin stands still in her place without a single move, still shook from learning who Obami is, but then she sees a sight she hasn't seen in centuries before it gets attacked by giant tentacles. It took a whole ass whale and a giant baby demon to snap Rin's son out of her trance. While she does her investigation, Hayato and Gil train hard and manage to beat Cory. On the other end, Miku finally makes her move and gets out in public, considering she a widely known fugitive that makes everyone scratch his head in wonder and disbelief. That said, Miku is not planning to surrender and shoots everyone who tries to come at her, so Pront flies to her location at top speed. The big boss starts searching every corner of the city, even in the girls' changing rooms, but he finds nothing, making Easley wonder how she managed to slip by unseen, which in a way something Miku hoped he would do, as her plan requires the enemies to start questioning this bit. Likewise, Rin was still searching every corner of her surroundings for a demon, but when she heard explosions coming from the area where Paula and Cory were training, she flew there at top speed and called up her sword to cut down the demon in front of her. Luckily for Cory, Paula stood in front of him acting as a shield. She told her master that Cory was one of the good demons and she shouldn't kill him. While Paula heals between the hands of the young demon boy, Rin wonders what this world has come to, who's a friend and who's foe. Hayato arrives with God Gil, so she seeks answers from the potato head on what's going on, to which he recaps the situation there and right now pretty decently. Back with the bad guys, we see Miku contemplating her plans, which is understandable since her goal is quite hard. Catching 2 Idaten is a challenge, but if they manage to get one at least, that would be a big win. That said, the demon's #1 priority is to get rid of Easley, the brains of the Idaten team, because brute strength will never help them find Miku, and finding Miku is the only way for the gods to win the war. Therefore, we see Easley working day and night trying to figure out the chick's next move. Pisala gets tired, so Easley tells her to go and take some rest. While heading to take a bath, we see Pisala starting to admire Easley's work ethic and how he never tried to pull a move on her whenever they were alone, which makes the war criminal blush. Yes, although she looks hot and cute, one must remember the lady is still a demon who ordered her men to capture children and grape women. On the other end, Rin went back to her old self and started training Paula once again. Since as Rin puts it, if they can't figure stuff out, then it is better to become strong and crush anything that might come up. Back with General Pisala, we see her taking a shower. Unlike you, my dear viewer who is still watching, you will get the PG-13 editor treatment to keep the video somewhat family-friendly. Anywho's, the back gets all steamy and not in a good way. A soldier who is later revealed to be the demon lord in a new mechanical body was pumping the same drug from before into the bath, and just like Easley, he didn't intend to do the do with her but capture the chick and revert her to their team so that she can capture the brains of the operation for them. When Easley tries to trigger a bomb he planned inside her after the brainwashing, he finds out that the demon lord has removed it. We learn that the Miku who went out in public was actually the demon lord changing faces thanks to the demon nurse's talents. Furthermore, when Pront was checking the changing room, the chick who noticed him was also the demon lord changing skins. He got spoke for a second thinking that Pront might have glimpsed the demon tat. Soon after this turn of events, Pisala heads to regroup with Paula and Cory. She takes the clueless Paula and heads off while the demon lord takes care of Cory. The home team gets worried when they don't find Paula, so they call Prontea to ask him if he knows where the best girl is. Since he also doesn't know, Prontea tells them to ask Easley. But when they tell him that he's not answering, Prontea gets serious for a second and stops playing with the demon baby to go and check on the headquarters. There he finds nothing but a bomb waiting for him, courtesy of the demon lord. Now after securing 2 Idaten, the demons go to work to find out more information about the Idaten, their bodies and their limits. Meanwhile, the nun, both the godly version and the human version, starts to wonder who is good and who is evil, believing the gods should make peace with the demons, a possibility that is not on the table, since in the gods' perspective, if left unchecked, the demons will roam freely, multiply, and kill everything on earth. That said, not all demons are bad to the core. When Cory goes to see the prisoners, he gets shocked, concerned, and borderline traumatized for Paula after all the atrocities they did to her and Easley, and when she says it hurts, Cory's heart starts beating. The series ends on a cliffhanger with Rin running around the world searching for her students who just hit rock bottom, literally and figuratively.